The queenside majority is something I've always been a little bit afraid of. Ever since I read this Max Oeh's book on the middle game, this queenside pawn majority was something I was afraid of, but I've never been good at using it with white. But this is the topic of today's video. We're gonna see a game where white uses the queenside pawn majority, and we're going to try to see if we can establish some rules on when is it dangerous, when it's not dangerous, and what to look for, how to play, and so on. So hang on, get in there, and let's look at something from the easy structure that is very important. And why is it the easy structure? It's because this is E pawn versus C pawn. It's my naming. I hope you like it. Thank you. This is DM Talks. Let's get going with how to use a queenside pawn majority. We have Adams with the white pieces, and we of course had to use Adams at some point in the easy structure. He is a big proponent for white in this structure. And this is French variation with Taras. The echo code is 707, C07, and this is probably the easiest way to get to this structure. This game was played in 2019 in Batumi in the European Teams Championship, and this is all mainline stuff, except here blacks usually go A6 is the main line, bishop D7 is another line, he goes bishop E7, which is kind of passive, putting the piece here. Usually black tries to put the bishop here instead. And in general, you should be a little bit wary about playing too passively with black in this structure, because the thing white wants to do is either develop a fast attack or establish a dominating position in the center where he controls the key squares, and therefrom can start an attack. We will see that if we look at Adams games and Tivyakhov's games and players like that, the way they win is usually that. But sometimes they also use the queen side majority. I've noticed that in a lot of variation, this pawn actually tries to ram up the board and sort of squeeze black's queen side in, and hoping this one will have problems developing. B3 is a variation that's kind of a nice aggressive way to play. Put the bishop on this diagonal, and we will have bishop here or bishop here, and that's some sort of the Horowitz bishops. Queen here, and here black is pursuing a different plan. He's getting ready to annoy white with something like this and develop the pieces, and maybe even this move sometimes, I don't know. Anyway, Adams decided that it was time to go for an ending. Now, we have discussed endings a lot in the easy structure, and in general we have not been so happy for the white side. We are starting to disagree with Oev and saying that, okay, maybe black is fine here. The good thing for white in this situation is that he's got this square firmly under control, and he's able to attack the queen side pretty fast. So this pawn is not going here anytime soon. It will take a long time to get that. Also, it will with this structure, it will take a long time to get some pressure in the c file, which is basically what black hopes. B6 makes sense, getting ready to develop the bishop. You could argue for bishop d7 instead, saying I don't want any weaknesses on the queen side, because after this move, black is already a little annoyed that this will come as a majority attack. So we have a majority attacking now, and here, and this is a nice little thing. White is simply trying to create a weakness before he gets going with the pawns, because you can also see that pushing these pawns here does not look like it's gonna succeed. Black's pieces are too active, too dominant to ever let that be a big success. So instead, why not try and give him a weakness and then wait a little bit, trying to let him have a passive position where it's difficult to develop, and then later start to move the pawns. So this is probably a better strategy than rushing with the pawns in this situation. Sometimes, of course, white can rush with the pawns. I'm gonna see if I can find a good example of that. But this one is more restrained. By the way, it's interesting in this kind of position that white is not afraid of this move. That will leave white's kingside in a total mess. And the reason for that is if he gives out the bishop, white will have the bishop pair, and he's going to try to decide the game on the queen side. Simply. So the king side, even though this move here, something like this structure is of course horrible. It just means that also black will have problems getting forward. You can probably put a knight here, but it won't matter too much. And white will try to win a pawn here and simply queen one of the pawns. This is the plan. So I would not like to part with my bishop in these kind of positions. In these kind of positions, like this, where you clearly white is hoping to win on the queen side, you really don't want to miss the bishop pair. So instead he played bishop e4, attacking c2, and white has to defend. Rook comes in, and here white didn't see any problems with anything, so he just overprotect this one. If the rook comes in, you can always expel it like this, and he's basically ready to develop this one, and then take this one and attack the pawn. Black will scramble to try to get some counterplay. So this is what Andreikin comes up with, putting the bishop here and going for more dynamic play. He's hoping to start some attacking here. So white hurries to unleash this one, and maybe there will be something here also preventing a sort of an invasion on a7, and putting the knight back. And white instead, black instead, he would not like to be pushed back. If white can just get this rid of this one and not keep control over the position, it will this problem here is a problem for black. And notice that white waits. He does not. Sometimes he will go a6, so he's not in a hurry to exchange. And this is one of the things that marks great players. They, in general, if they can, they sort of try to manage, accept that this structure is not settled yet. They can accept that there will take something place over there, and and I often do this to just lower the burden on my head. I just take the pawn to just get rid of the problems with thinking about when to take the pawn, if that makes sense. Bishop here, take, and take. And by the way, this is not, you don't really want these pawns in these kind of situations. It's you can make a lot, because in general this makes it more difficult for black to use his majority, and white will usually often go a3, and this pawn is just blocked. Okay, now it's time to take and exchange one thing here. And one of the things white is really keen on is white knows that probably this one is weak. Oops, sorry, that was a mistake. This guy is weak. So if we can get it to a rook and knight versus rook, then black will probably be tied to defending this, and then we'll be ready to get rolling here and have a much nicer square. So we know this one, and that's also why black tries to avoid this, because black's chances in this situation is to create counterplay with the rooks and the knight, so he cannot afford just to exchange everything, then he's gonna lose. Okay. Attacking the pawn, and attacking a pawn again, and here comes this one. And by the way, of course, Adams is extremely strong in this situation. A lot of things that is important in situations like this is to try to dominate the position is one thing, but also keeping the opponent's counterplay at bay, and not least to be able to sometimes transpose into other setups. So this transformation of advantages is an important feature in positions like this. A little smart move. He's trying to win a pawn, just improving the position of the rook. The rook was not very good, well placed on d6. So, and black's keeping black's rook here, and this allows white to get the knight out without this one being attacked. So that was smart. Knight here, and white goes h4. Keeping these pawns, they're actually, at the moment, they can't move. That was not what black wanted. But on the other hand, black is not without counterplay. And you don't really want to do this because that's too early. It will be very difficult to push that pawn all the way up without giving black serious counterplay. So keeping control of the position. Rook here, good move. By the way, Andreikin is of course a very strong player, and it's kind of interesting to see him getting grinded down like this. He's under pressure here. King e2, getting out. Rook here, pushing the queen out and transposing. So this was one of the ideas. There is also some problems here, and white, of course, have a very nice little dynamic duo of knight and rook trying to attack the king. The threat now is simply to take this one and mate him with knight rook h7. So he has to play f6, knight here, threaten to go here and take this one. And this is oops, sorry. We're back here. Knight e7, trying to get it to this very juicy square, and white finds a very neat little position here, takes here, check. And we can say that that sort of the rest is a rook ending. It's a very instructive rook ending, and you can learn a lot from this. But from sort of our viewpoint, the battle is more or less over. White is, of course, in the driver's seat. The only question is if he will be able to win. This wins the knight due to the pin on the king, and take, and e5. Very interesting. And of course, white has a big advantage in that this will create an outside passed pawn at some point. So, and here's a pawn up, but it's not so simple. g4, there are some ideas here for white as well, and you do prevent something like this because this would be very unpleasant. Rook here, and trying to get the king in. And notice that black cannot play something like this. Of course, this is hanging, but at the moment it's also due to this, and mate with rook h7. So this with the king on h6, you look for different kind of mates. Rook here, attack, and back. Silent draw. Of course, Adam's not gonna accept a draw here. Rook here, and rook f7. So accepting that that you have to give up this pawn. Very interesting position. So of course the rook ending is much better for white, but it's not easy, and it can easily be drawn. I think I would probably not be able to win this against Andreikin because he's a very strong defender. You have to play very well. And I don't think actually Adams is such a good, such a big star in rook end, but here he managed to play very well. Rook b6, and it's typical for very intuitive players that they have some problems in rook endings due to the extremely tactical and concrete nature of the position, that is always finding a lot of forced lines instead of feeling your way, because the intuition sort of it's not so easy to have intuition in rook endings. Here, whoops, this threatens to get some serious counterplay with this move. For instance, something like this check here is probably a bit annoying for white, and the e pawn will be a serious dangerous factor. So instead he says, okay, I'm trying to control it, and of course no draw. Okay, the rook has to go back. That was not part of the plan. Defending here, rook here, here, and black goes b4 before white can go something like c4 and c5 and so on, and c3. And of course white has this one that's just waiting to get down on it. But there are of course this pawn that could get into trouble. So rook f2, threatening e4, king, defending e4, rook, tagging b3, king, defending, and here next time it could go here, and then that would be nicer for white anyway. Maybe he should go here. Sorry. Instead he went this move, and this was probably miscalculation because the e pawn is stronger than d pawn. Check. And this is and by the way, the finish is very instructive. And here he resigned. The problem is his king went to h5, but it was winning anyway. This one is coming with check. So white has plenty of time to stop the d pawn afterwards. And then the b pawn will queen. So nice little game by Adams, and great little at to get knowledge in the easy structure. So we noticed that Adams was not in a hurry to push the pawns. He's got the weak pawn on the black queen side, and then he maneuvered around and actually won a pawn on the king side while being very active, and then winning the rook ending in a sort of instructive way. This was GM Talks, and remember to like and subscribe, and tell all your friends. Please tell all your friends.